My name is Alyssa Bennett, and if you looked at me today, you'd probably think I have everything together. My own business, my own apartment, and the kind of independence people usually admire. But the truth is, none of that came easy. Behind my calm smile and professional life, there's a past that still hurts to think about. Because for years, my own parents treated me like nothing more than their maid. I grew up in a small suburban town in Ohio. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling either. My dad, Robert Bennett, worked as an accountant, and my mom, Elaine, stayed home most of the time. I had a younger brother, Ethan, who was everyone's golden child, and a younger sister, Grace, who my parents treated like a delicate little princess. Then there was me, the oldest, the responsible one, the one expected to keep the house running when mom wasn't in the mood. From as early as 12 years old, I was expected to cook dinner, do laundry, clean the house, and even take care of Grace when mom was out with friends. It wasn't just helping out, it was a full-time job, disguised as being part of the family. If I ever complained, mom's words were sharp. Alyssa, stop being dramatic. You're the oldest, so it's your responsibility. And Dad, he would just shrug and say, your mother's right. Learn to be useful, it'll prepare you for the real world. At first, I believed them. I told myself that maybe I was supposed to sacrifice more, that maybe this was how families worked. But as the years went on, it became painfully clear this wasn't about responsibility. This was about control. When I was 16, it got worse. While my friends were at football games, study groups, or just hanging out at the mall, I was stuck scrubbing floors and ironing Dad's shirts for work. Grace never had to lift a finger, and Ethan only ever touched a dish if it was to throw it in the sink for me to wash later. I remember one night in particular. It was the Friday of homecoming week, and my best friend Maya begged me to come to the dance with her. I had my dress ready, my hair straightened, and even my shoes laid out. But right before I left, Mom stopped me at the door. "Where do you think you're going?" she asked, her voice cold. "To the dance," I said, trying not to sound nervous. "I already told you last week." Mom crossed her arms. "Not tonight. The house is a mess, and Grace needs help finishing her project. You'll stay home." I can still remember the tears burning my eyes as I slipped out of my dress and put on old jeans again. That night, while other girls my age were dancing under twinkling lights, I was sitting at the kitchen, table gluing pieces of cardboard for Grace's science project. I hated it. I hated feeling invisible, like my dreams and feelings didn't matter. But what cut the deepest was the fact that my parents didn't see anything wrong with it. To them, I wasn't Alyssa, I was just the helper. By the time I turned 18, I thought things might change. I was legally an adult, and I had been accepted into a decent college with a partial scholarship. I was so excited, finally, a chance to step into my own life. But Mom and Dad had other plans. "We don't think you're ready to live on your own," Dad said at the dinner table one night. "College is expensive anyway, and we need you here." Need me here. That phrase echoed in my head like a prison sentence. They didn't mean they needed me as a daughter. They needed me as free labor. So instead of packing my bags for college, I stayed behind. I picked up small jobs, waitressing, tutoring kids after school. Anything to save a little money for myself. But every dollar I made somehow got swallowed up by family needs. If Ethan wanted new basketball shoes, I was told to pitch in. If Grace wanted makeup for prom, I was told it was my duty as the older sister to help. And every time I tried to argue, Mom would guilt trip me. "You'll understand one day when you have a family. We all make sacrifices. Don't be selfish, Alyssa." But inside I was screaming. Was it selfish to want a life of my own? Was it selfish to want more than cooking meals I didn't eat, folding clothes I didn't wear, and living in a house that felt less like home and more like a cage? Still, I stayed quiet. Because deep down I thought maybe, just maybe, if I worked hard enough, they would finally see me. They would finally treat me like a daughter instead of a servant. But that moment never came. Instead, it all escalated in ways I couldn't have imagined. By my early 20s, I had developed a hidden talent for business. While working at a local diner, I started noticing patterns in how customers ordered, how promotions worked, and how the manager ran things. I was fascinated by efficiency and strategy. Quietly, I began teaching myself online, marketing, sales, and eventually contract management. It was my secret world, the one place my parents couldn't control me. At night, after finishing chores, I'd stay up late in my room with my old laptop, researching everything I could. I started freelancing, helping small businesses with contracts and marketing strategies. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Of course, my parents mocked me for it. "Look at Alyssa," Mom would say with a laugh, "playing businesswoman on that old computer. You'd be better off cleaning the kitchen properly." And Dad would add, "Don't get your hopes up. People like us don't get big breaks. Just focus on supporting your family." Those words cut deep, but they also lit a fire in me. I realized something important. They were never going to believe in me. If I wanted a real future, I'd have to build it myself, even if that meant doing it in secret. And so I kept going, even harder. What started as small freelance work grew into bigger opportunities. By the time I was 24, I was negotiating contracts worth tens of thousands of dollars. But my parents still had no idea, because in their eyes, I was just their maid. What none of us knew then was that everything was about to change. A single meeting with a CEO would flip my entire world upside down. And for the first time in my life, my parents would be forced to see me not as their servant, but as someone powerful. I still remember the day everything shifted. It was a gray Tuesday morning, and I was running late to a meeting I never should have been invited to in the first place. At that time, I had been freelancing for a small marketing firm called Brightline Solutions. They knew I had a knack for contracts and negotiating with clients, but I was usually kept in the background, typing up documents or running research. That morning, however, their regular consultant called in sick, and my boss, Mr. Henderson, looked at me and said, "Alyssa, you're coming with me. Just take notes and stay quiet." I didn't argue. I grabbed my folder, smoothed out my blazer, and followed him into a glass conference room downtown. Sitting across the table was a man I recognized instantly. Charles Whitman, the CEO of a tech company worth millions. He was known for being tough, someone who could spot weakness in a second. My heart raced. I wasn't supposed to speak, just listen, but fate had other plans. The meeting started smoothly enough, with Mr. Henderson making his pitch. But when Charles asked a specific question about contract clauses, my boss froze. He flipped through his papers, stammering, clearly lost. I could see Charles losing patience. And before I knew it, the words slipped out of my mouth. "Actually, Mr. Whitman," I said, my voice trembling at first but growing stronger. "The clause you're referring to is designed to protect both parties. It ensures that neither side can walk away without proper notice, which reduces risk for your company." The entire room went silent. My boss shot me a look that could have burned holes in the wall. But Charles leaned forward, his eyes sharp with interest. "And you are?" I swallowed hard. "Alyssa Bennett. I handle contract analysis for Brightline." He smirked slightly. "Well, Alyssa, that's the first clear answer I've gotten all morning. Go on." For the next 15 minutes, I walked him through the key points of the deal. My hands were shaking under the table, but my voice stayed steady. By the end, Charles was nodding. He looked at Mr. Henderson, then back at me. "She knows what she's talking about. I'll sign the contract on one condition. I want Alyssa to manage it directly." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. My boss looked furious, but he had no choice. A week later, I was officially managing a contract worth over $4 million. It was the breakthrough I had been dreaming of. For once, I wasn't just the helper or the background worker. I was the face of something real, something powerful. But when I shared the news at home, hoping, praying for a flicker of pride, all I got was scorn. $4 million? Mom scoffed, folding laundry without looking at me. "That's ridiculous. They're just using you. Don't get too full of yourself." Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. "Don't forget where you come from. At the end of the day, you're still living under this roof. Titles and numbers don't change that." Grace rolled her eyes. "Wow, Alyssa thinks she's some kind of big shot now." And Ethan laughed. "Yeah, let's see how long it lasts before you screw it up." I sat there in silence, my excitement crashing into a wall of cold indifference. It was like a cruel reminder that no matter how high I climbed, to them, I would always just be the maid. But deep down, something inside me shifted. Their words didn't crush me this time. They fueled me. If they couldn't see my worth, I'd make the world see it. So I threw myself into the work. Charles became not just a client, but a mentor. He saw potential in me that my family never had, and he pushed me to think bigger. "Alyssa," he said once during a late-night strategy call, "people like you don't just sign contracts, you build empires." Those words lit a fire in me. I started networking, meeting CEOs, and building relationships that expanded far beyond Brightline Solutions. Within 2 years, I had enough experience and confidence to launch my own consulting business. It wasn't easy. I worked insane hours, slept less than 5 hours a night, and faced endless skepticism. But slowly, things began to click. Clients trusted me, deals closed, my name started circulating in business circles. And yet, every night, I still returned home to a family that treated me like an unpaid servant. No matter how exhausted I was, Mom would leave dishes piled high in the sink, waiting for me. Grace would dump her dirty laundry in my room, expecting me to wash it. Ethan would bark orders like I was his assistant. One evening, after a 14-hour workday, I walked in to find Mom waiting at the door with a list in her hand. "Good, you're home," she said. "The bathrooms need scrubbing, and Grace has an early event tomorrow, so iron her dress. And don't forget to pack Ethan's gym bag for practice." Something inside me snapped. I dropped my briefcase on the floor and looked her dead in the eye. "No," I said firmly. Her eyes widened. "Excuse me?" I said no. "I'm not your maid, I'm not Grace's babysitter, I'm not Ethan's assistant. I'm your daughter, and I've been treated like a servant for too long." The room went silent. My dad put down his newspaper, glaring at me. "Don't talk to your mother that way." But I didn't back down. For the first time, I stood tall. I've built something for myself, something none of you even care to understand. And I won't let you take that away from me. I left them standing in the living room, stunned. That night, I made a decision. I would move out. It wasn't easy. They guilt-tripped me, begged me, even accused me of abandoning the family. But I signed a lease on a small apartment downtown and packed my things. For the first time in my life, I closed the door on their demands and opened one to freedom. But little did I know, my family wasn't done with me yet. My success was growing, and so was their resentment. And soon, they would cross a line that turned my quiet rebellion into something far bigger, a battle for justice that would change everything. Living alone felt like breathing fresh air for the first time. My apartment was small, a one-bedroom with squeaky floors and secondhand furniture, but it was mine. I could come home after work and not be greeted with a list of chores. I could leave dishes in the sink without guilt. I could finally sit in silence and feel like a person, not a servant. At first, I thought distance might improve things with my family. Maybe they'd realize how much they had relied on me. Maybe they'd miss me and finally appreciate who I was. But that hope didn't last long. Barely a week after I moved out, my mom showed up unannounced. She walked into my apartment without knocking, her eyes scanning the space like she was inspecting a hotel room. "So this is where all your big money goes?" she said with a smirk. "Doesn't look that impressive." I clenched my jaw. "Mom, you can't just walk in here." She ignored me and dropped a bag of laundry on my couch. "Ethan has a tournament this weekend, and Grace has a formal coming up. You should help out. It's the least you can do for your family." I stood frozen, staring at the bag. "I don't live there anymore. I'm not doing your chores." Her face hardened. "You're ungrateful, Alyssa. We raised you, gave you a roof over your head, and this is how you repay us? Running away and acting like you're better than us?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I calmly picked up the bag, walked to the door, and placed it outside. "I'll always be your daughter, but I'm not your maid anymore. If you can't accept that, maybe you shouldn't come here." Her glare could have cut glass. She muttered something under her breath and stormed out. That moment told me everything. My family wasn't going to change. If anything, they were going to fight harder to keep control over me, and I was right. Within months, the snide comments turned into full-blown sabotage. Grace spread rumors to relatives that I thought I was too good for the family. Ethan made jokes online, posting memes about me being the fake boss who cleans toilets at night. My parents called constantly, demanding money. At first, I gave in. I sent small amounts, thinking it might calm them down. But the more I gave, the more they demanded. It was never enough. One evening, I was reviewing a new contract for a major client when my dad called. His voice was sharp. "You need to send us $5,000. Ethan's car broke down, and we can't cover it." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Dad, I can't just hand out money every time you ask. I have expenses too." His tone turned cold. "After everything we've done for you, you can't even help your own brother? What kind of daughter are you?" Something inside me cracked. "No, Dad. What kind of parents are you? You treated me like a servant my whole life. And now that I've built something for myself, you only see me as a wallet. I won't do this anymore." He hung up on me. That night, I realized this wasn't just about boundaries. It was about survival. If I kept giving in, they would drain me dry. But the real explosion came a few weeks later. I was at a networking event hosted by Charles Whitman. It was a huge opportunity, dozens of CEOs and investors in one place. I was mid-conversation with a potential client when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned, and to my horror, there stood my mother. And not just her, Grace and Ethan were with her too. They had actually shown up at my professional event. "Alyssa," Mom said loudly, drawing attention from people nearby. "You've been ignoring us, but we're here now. You need to come home and help your family. Stop pretending you're some big shot." I froze, heat rushing to my face. Around us, whispers started. Grace smirked like she was enjoying the scene, and Ethan folded his arms, looking smug. Charles noticed and quickly stepped in. "Is everything all right here?" Mom turned to him. "Are you the man giving her these crazy ideas? Alyssa belongs with her family, not chasing after some fantasy business life. She's always been irresponsible. You don't know the real her." I felt the ground shift under me. Years of humiliation, years of being silenced, all bubbling up at once. My chest tightened, but instead of breaking, I found myself standing taller. "No," I said firmly, my voice louder than I expected. "This ends here." I looked around at the crowd, at my mentor, at the faces of people I had worked so hard to impress. My whole life, my parents treated me like a servant. They never believed in me, never supported me. And now that I've built something for myself, they're trying to tear it down, but I won't let them. I am not their maid. I am not their ATM. I am Alyssa Bennett, and I earned everything I have by myself. The room was silent for a moment, then Charles spoke. His voice was calm but firm. "And that's exactly why people trust you, Alyssa, because you've proven yourself, even against the odds." My parents' faces turned red. Grace muttered something about me being dramatic, and Ethan laughed under his breath, but no one was listening to them. All eyes were on me, and for the first time, I wasn't ashamed. Security escorted them out of the event, despite their protests. And as the doors closed behind them, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Fear, because I knew this wasn't the last time they'd try to drag me down. Relief, because I had finally spoken my truth out loud. But that night, I also made a vow. If my family wanted to keep pushing, I would fight back, not with anger, but with proof. Proof that I was more than what they made me believe. Proof that success built on hard work and integrity would always outshine manipulation. And as it turned out, life had a way of handing me the perfect chance for revenge, one that would not only shut my family down, but also teach them a lesson they'd never forget. After that networking event, I thought maybe my parents would back off. Surely after being escorted out in front of CEOs and investors, they would realize they couldn't control me anymore. But I underestimated them. A week later, I got a call from a lawyer. My stomach dropped when he said, "Your parents are trying to claim that you owe them financial support under family obligation." I couldn't believe it. They were actually suing me, using the excuse that since they had raised me, I had a duty to give them money for life. I felt sick. The betrayal was beyond anything I could imagine. For a moment, I wanted to give up. What was the point of fighting when my own family was dragging me through the mud? But then I remembered every late night scrubbing floors while Grace and Ethan played. Every broken promise. Every cruel word. And I realized this wasn't just about me. This was about proving that no one, not even family, has the right to enslave you under the mask of love. I called Charles. When I explained everything, he didn't hesitate. "We'll fight this. And Alyssa, you won't fight alone." Together, we prepared. My legal team gathered evidence. Text messages of my parents demanding money, relatives confirming how they treated me like a maid, even old neighbors who remembered me doing all the chores while my siblings relaxed. Piece by piece, we built a case that exposed the truth. When the court date came, I walked in wearing the sharpest suit I owned, my head held high. My parents sat on the other side, whispering angrily. Grace looked smug, and Ethan was scrolling on his phone like none of it mattered.